Okay, this video is going to be about the most basic principles of equation solving. So let's start with the most basic equation. Let's say our equation is x plus 1 equals 3. So the goal here is to figure out what x is. That's the goal in all equation solving, is to figure out what your unknown is, which is, in this case, is just x. So the question really is, what plus 1 equals 3? And I think it's pretty easy to look at and say, well, x must be 2, because 2 plus 1 equals 3, right? So the solution is just x equals 2, and that's it. And that's great. We solved that equation, but these equations are going to get much harder than x plus 1 equals 3. So what we need to do is learn some basic principles that we can use to solve even much harder equations. So we'll take small steps here. And let's go to an equation, x minus 6 equals 13. This is another example. X minus 6 equals 13. How are we going to solve that equation? Again, you could probably look at it and figure out what x has to be, but let's use some algebra to actually do it this time. The principle is that we're going to use is we can add anything, any number, to both sides of an equation. As long as we do something to the left side of an equation, we can do the same thing to the right side of the equation, and that's allowed. So for example, we could, if we wanted to, add 1 to both sides of that equation. And if we did, what would we get? If we add 1 to the left side, we'd have x minus 6 plus 1. The negative 6 and the plus 1 combine to become a negative 5. So we have x minus 5 on the left side now. On the right side, we just have 13 plus 1, which is easy, it's just 14. So the equation x minus 5 equals 14 is the exact same equation as x minus 6 equals 13. We added 1 to both sides of the equation, and that's allowed. But there's no real reason why we would actually want to do that. So let's do something a little bit different, something that might be a little bit more helpful for us. And the goal here is to get x by itself. We want to solve for x, so we have an equation x equals some number. So what we're going to do, and this might seem a little tricky at first, but what we're going to do is we're going to add 6 to both sides of this equation, and you'll see what happens here in a second. Let's look at the left side. We now have x minus 6 plus 6. Well, the minus 6 and the plus 6 cancel each other out, and on the left side we're just left with an x. So we've got an x by itself now on the left side of the equation. On the right, we have 13 plus 6, which is easy. That's just 19. We've actually solved this equation. The solution is x equals 19, and we solved it by adding 6 to both sides. Now, you can look at that and you're probably thinking, oh, the reason we added 6 now, the reason we chose 6 plus 6 is because we had a minus 6 next to the x. The minus 6 and the plus 6 canceled each other out, and that left us with x just by itself in the solution. So let's try another example. Let's say now we have x plus 4 equals, I don't know, 101. Sure. Now think about it for a little bit and see if you can use algebra to get x by itself. You can pause the video if you like, give it a second, see if you can figure it out. What we're going to do to get x by itself is we're going to subtract 4 from both sides of the equation. As long as you do it to both sides of the equation, it's okay. And why did we choose minus 4? Well, if you look at the left-hand side, you have an x plus 4 minus 4. The plus 4 and the minus 4 cancel each other out. And on the left now, we're just left with x by itself. On the right-hand side, we have 101 minus 4, which I believe is 97. So you've solved for x. X equals 97. So something you can do with any equation that you ever solve, and something that you should do, is check your solution. Here's how you do it. What we're going to do is we're going to copy down the original equation, x minus 6 equals 13. Now what we're going to do is we're going to plug in our solution, x equals 19, into this equation. So we're going to substitute in x equals 19. We're just going to replace this x right here with a 19. Now the question is that equation true? So 19 minus 6 equals 13. Yes, that is a true equation. So we know that our solution, x equals 19, is the correct solution to this equation. Let's do it for this problem down here. We're going to copy down the original equation, x plus 4 equals 101. And we're going to substitute our solution, x equals 97, into that original equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this x with a 97. And the question again is that a true equation? And obviously 97 plus 4 is 101, so we've checked our solution. X equals 97 is the correct solution. Okay, let's get you guys a video quiz. This video quiz is solve for x. And the equation you want to solve for x is x plus 7 equals 23. Also, when you get finished, check your solution. Okay, see how you do? Hand it in class. Okay, so the basic principle that we used to solve both of those equations was that we're allowed to add the same number to both sides of any equation, and that equation remains the same. We're also allowed to subtract the same number from both sides of any equation. As long as you do something to the left-hand side of the equation the same as you do it to the right-hand side of an equation, it's legal, it's allowed. The question is, how do you write that principle down in a general sort of mathematical way? Because our goal as math teachers is always to write things down in the most confusing way possible. So what we decided to do is we decided to take the most general equation, let's say it's A equals B. The most basic equation you can possibly think of. We don't know what A is, we don't know what B is, but we know that they're equal to each other. And what we said that we're allowed to do is add or subtract any number from both sides of that equation. So let's just say we're adding to both sides of the equation C. Again, we don't know what C is, but it's the same on both sides, so we're allowed to do it. What that's going to give us is the equation A plus C equals B plus C. Now here is the general principle. The general principle is that this equation, A equals B, is the exact same thing as that equation. A plus C equals B plus C. These two equations are, and when we say the same in math, the fancy word that we use is equivalent. These two equations are equivalent. That's the general principle. You'll probably see that formula in your book somewhere, so try not to be confused by it. It's really very simple. It just uses confusing letters. Okay, so that's it for this video. We'll talk more about equation solving in the next one.